Commander Draxus stood on the bridge of the Crimson Dawn with his forearms folded behind his back. His yellow eyes moved slowly across the large viewing screen. Outside, the stars were cold and quiet. The Marin corridor stretched before them like a river of darkness between distant suns. This was Valanthi space now. They had taken it 6 months ago from the weak species who once controlled these trade routes. The Valanthi Dominion was growing stronger every year. Every month brought new territories, new subjects, new wealth. Draxus allowed himself a small feeling of pride. His patrol cruiser was one of 30 ships that guarded this section of space. No one would dare challenge them here. "Commander," said a voice from behind him. Draxus turned. His sensor officer, a young male named Tovrik, was staring at his screen with a strange expression. His scales had gone pale. "What is it?" Draxus asked. "I am detecting something, Commander. A ship. It is approaching from the outer boundary." "A trader? A refugee ship trying to escape our territory?" "No, Commander." Tovrik swallowed hard. "It is moving too fast, much too fast. No ship in our database can travel at this speed." Draxus walked over to the sensor station and looked at the data himself. The numbers made no sense. The approaching vessel was crossing vast distances in moments. It was not using any jump gate. It was not following any known travel method. "That is impossible," Draxus said. "Your equipment must be broken." "I checked 3 times, Commander. The readings are accurate." The bridge grew quiet. Other officers turned from their stations to look. Fear was a strange thing. It could spread through a room like smoke, even when no one spoke a word. "Can you identify the ship type?" Draxus asked. Tovrik worked his controls. The computer searched through thousands of ship designs from hundreds of species. One by one, they were rejected. No match. No match. No match. Then the screen stopped. A red warning symbol appeared. Tovrik made a small sound in his throat. His hands began to shake. "Commander," the computer found a match. "But it is from the restricted historical files, the Silence Accords archive." Draxus felt something cold move through his body. The Silence Accords. He had heard that name only once, during his training at the academy. The instructors had mentioned it briefly and then moved on quickly, as if they did not want to discuss it. "Show me," Draxus ordered. The screen displayed the match. The ship design was old. The file was marked with the highest security clearance. At the top of the document was a single word that made Draxus step backward. "Human." "That cannot be right," Draxus said. His voice was not as steady as he wanted it to be. "Humans are extinct. They disappeared from the galaxy 400 years ago. They are nothing but old stories." "The signature matches perfectly, Commander," Tovrik whispered. "It is a human warship." The bridge erupted in worried voices. Officers spoke over each other. Some called up old files on their personal screens. Others simply stared at the main viewer as if expecting a monster to appear. "Silence!" Draxus shouted. The noise stopped. "We will not panic like frightened children. This is probably a mistake. Some other species using old technology. Humans are gone. Everyone knows this." But even as he spoke, doubt crawled into his mind. He had grown up hearing stories about humans. All Valanthia children did. Tales told in dark rooms about the species that came from a death world. The species that could survive almost anything. The species that broke the greatest empire in galactic history in less than 2 weeks. The Corveth. That was the empire's name. Draxus remembered now. The Corveth had ruled 1,000 star systems. They had been the most powerful force in the galaxy. And then they made the mistake of attacking human civilians. The stories said the humans did not negotiate. They did not threaten. They simply came. And when they were finished, the Corveth Empire no longer existed. Not conquered, not defeated, erased. Then the humans had withdrawn. They signed treaties with every major power, the Silence Accords. They asked only one thing, to be left alone and forgotten. And for 400 years, the galaxy had been happy to forget. "Commander," Tovrik said, "the ship has arrived." Draxus looked at the main viewer. His heart stopped for a moment. The human ship hung in space like a dark blade. It was not large. It was perhaps half the size of the Crimson Dawn. Its surface was smooth and black, with no visible weapons or markings. It did not look threatening. but something about it made Draxus want to run. Something about the way it simply floated there, completely still, made his instincts scream at him. This was a predator. This was something that killed. "They are not moving," an officer reported. "They are just watching us." Minutes passed. The human ship did nothing. It made no aggressive movements. It powered no weapons. It simply existed there, like a shadow that had taken physical form. "Should we contact them, Commander?" Tovrik asked. "No," Draxus said quickly. "Do not send any signals. Do not do anything that could be seen as hostile. We will wait." More minutes passed. The tension on the bridge grew thick enough to taste. Officers gripped their stations with white knuckles. Some were praying quietly to old gods. Then the communication system activated on its own. Every screen on the bridge flickered. A sound came through the speakers. It was a voice. It spoke in perfect Valanthi language. But there was something strange about it. Something too calm, too patient. "We are here to observe," the voice said. "Continue as you were." The transmission ended. Draxus stood frozen. "Continue as you were." What did that mean? Were the humans watching them? Testing them? Waiting for them to make a mistake? "Commander, what do we do?" Tovrik asked. His voice cracked with fear. Draxus had no answer. For the first time in his military career, he had no idea what to do. He was trained to fight enemies. He was trained to win battles. But he had never been trained to face something like this. He walked slowly back to his command chair and sat down. His legs felt weak. "Send a message to High Command," he said quietly. "Tell them exactly what we have seen. Use the highest priority channel. Mark it as critical." "What should I say, Commander?" Draxus looked at the dark ship on the screen. 400 years of silence. 400 years of peace. And now, here they were. The ancient nightmare had returned. "Tell them," Draxus said, "that the humans are back." The message was sent. The Crimson Dawn remained still, and outside the human warship continued to watch with endless patience. On other Valanthi ships throughout the sector, word began to spread. Officers told officers. Crews whispered to crews. The news traveled faster than any official message could. A human ship had been seen. The ghosts of the past had returned. In military bases across Valanthi space, old files were being pulled from deep archives. Commanders who had laughed at children's stories were now reading historical reports with trembling hands. The records were clear. The evidence was undeniable. The humans were not a myth. They were not exaggerated tales told to frighten young soldiers. They were real, and they had come back for a reason. No one knew what that reason was. No one dared to guess. In the highest towers of the Valanthi capital world, emergency lights began to flash. Admirals were pulled from their beds. Government officials rushed to secured meeting rooms. A single question was on everyone's mind. Why now? After 400 years of silence, why had the humans returned? And more importantly, what had the Valanthi Dominion done to bring them? The answer to that question would come soon, and when it did, it would shake the very foundations of their empire. But for now, Commander Draxus could only sit and watch the dark ship on his screen. It had not moved. It had not spoken again. It simply waited there, patient as death itself. And somehow that was more terrifying than any attack could have been. The Great Hall of the Valanthi Admiralty had not seen such chaos in 300 years. 20 of the highest-ranking military commanders sat around a massive stone table. Their voices rose and fell like crashing waves. Some demanded immediate action. Others urged caution. A few simply sat in stunned silence. At the head of the table, Supreme Admiral Korath slammed his fist down hard enough to crack the ancient wood. "Enough!" he roared. "We will have order in this chamber." The shouting slowly died. Officers returned to their seats, though fear still burned in their eyes. "Now," Korath said, "we will discuss this matter like rational beings, not like prey animals running from shadows." "With respect, Supreme Admiral," said a younger commander, "these are not shadows." Commander Draxus confirmed the signature. "It is a human warship, the first one seen in 400 years. "One ship," Korath said dismissively. "One small ship, sitting alone in space. This is what has reduced our great admiralty to panicked fools? You do not understand, said a quiet voice from the far end of the table. Everyone turned. The speaker was Elder Admiral Sothran, the oldest living member of the Valanthe military. His scales had faded to gray with age. His body was bent and weak, but his eyes remained sharp. Sothran had not spoken in a council meeting for over 50 years. Most had assumed he attended only out of tradition, but now he rose slowly from his chair, and every eye in the room watched him. I was young when my grandfather told me the stories, Sothran said. He was a junior officer during the time of the Silence Accords. He saw things that broke his mind. He never fully recovered. Old tale, Korath said. Exaggerations passed down through generations. No. Sothran's voice was firm. I have read the sealed records, the ones that require the highest clearance, the ones that our government has kept hidden because the truth is too terrible for our people to know. He walked slowly around the table, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. 412 years ago, there was an empire called the Corveth. They ruled over 1,000 star systems. Their military was the largest in the galaxy. They believed themselves to be the supreme power in all of existence. Sothran paused and looked at the faces around him. The humans had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. They had settled perhaps 20 worlds. They were small, weak. They kept to themselves. The Corveth saw them as potential slaves. Nothing more. We know the basic history, Korath said impatiently. Do you? Sothran asked. Do you know what happened at Meridian 7? No one answered. Korath's arrogant expression flickered with uncertainty. Meridian 7 was a human farming colony, Sothran continued. 40,000 civilians, families, children. The Corveth wanted the planet for its mineral resources. They gave the humans 1 day to evacuate. When the humans asked for more time, the Corveth grew impatient. The old admiral's voice grew heavy. They bombed the colony from orbit. Every man, woman, and child. 40,000 lives ended in a single afternoon. The Corveth admiral reportedly laughed and said that the humans would learn their place soon enough. Sothran stopped walking. He stood very still. 11 days later, the Corveth Empire no longer existed. That is impossible, a young admiral said. No force could destroy an empire of 1,000 systems in 11 days. They did not destroy it, Sothran said. They dismantled it. There is a difference. The humans did not kill civilians. They did not bomb cities. They did not commit the same crimes that were committed against them. Instead, they systematically eliminated every single military installation the Corveth possessed. He began counting on his fingers. Every shipyard, every weapons factory, every military base, every defense station, every warship, every transport capable of carrying soldiers, all of it, gone, in 11 days. The room was completely silent now. The Corveth tried to fight back, of course. They sent their grand fleet to face the humans in open battle. 3,000 warships, the pride of their empire. Sothran shook his head slowly. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, not a single Corveth ship remained. The humans lost 7 vessels. How? Korath whispered. His arrogance had vanished completely. The humans come from a death world, Sothran said, a planet where everything wants to kill you. They evolved not to survive, but to dominate. Their reflexes are faster than ours. Their bodies can heal from wounds that would kill us. Their minds can process combat situations at speeds we cannot match. And their technology, he trailed off, struggling to find words. My grandfather saw their weapons in action once. He described a beam that could cut through our strongest armor like it was nothing. Ships that moved so fast they seemed to teleport. Missiles that could think for themselves and find any target, no matter where it hid. Sothran returned to his seat and sat down heavily. After the Corveth fell, the other empires panicked. Everyone believed the humans would continue their conquest. They would take system after system until they ruled everything. Several species prepared for extinction. Others planned desperate last stands. But they stopped, Korath said quietly. Yes, they stopped. The humans gathered representatives from every major power and announced that they had no interest in conquest. They did not want to rule the galaxy. They did not want revenge against anyone except the Corveth. All they wanted was to be left alone. The silence accord, someone said. Correct. The humans agreed to withdraw from galactic affairs completely. They sealed their borders. They stopped all contact with other species. In exchange, the galaxy agreed to never threaten them again. And for 400 years, that arrangement held. Sothran looked around the table one final time. Until now, the silence that followed was the heaviest any of them had ever experienced. Finally, Supreme Admiral Korra spoke. What did we do? Why would the humans return now? Sothran's expression grew dark. 3 weeks ago, our forces intercepted a trade convoy in the Myron corridor. 12 cargo ships carrying supplies to colonies on the Outer Rim. Standard operations, Korra said. We have seized hundreds of convoys since taking that territory. Yes, but these ships were different. Sothran pulled out a datapad and placed it on the table. Look at the hull markings on the lead vessel. The image appeared on the central display. It showed the side of a cargo ship. There, barely visible among other markings, was a small symbol, a blue circle containing a simple image of a planet. I do not recognize it, Korra said. Neither did our captains. But I do. That symbol has not been seen in 400 years. It marks a ship under human protection. The blood drained from every face in the room. We attacked ships protected by the humans? A commander gasped. Worse, we captured them. We imprisoned the crews, and we have been using them as slave labor in our mining operations for the past 3 weeks. Korra looked like he might be sick. Why did no one know this? Why was this not reported? Because we forgot, Sothran said bitterly. We forgot what that symbol meant. We forgot what the humans were capable of. We became arrogant, just like the Corvette before us. An alert chimed from the communication station. An officer rushed to check it, then turned back with a face full of terror. Supreme Admiral, we have received an update from Commander Draxus. 2 more human ships have arrived at his position. They have formed a triangle formation around the Crimson Dawn. Korra stood up so fast his chair fell backward. Send orders immediately. Tell Draxus to hold position. No aggressive actions, no threatening movements, no communication unless the humans speak first. What else should we do, Supreme Admiral? The officer asked. Korra looked at Sothran. The old admiral's expression offered no hope. Pray, Korra said. Pray that they are willing to talk before they act. Because if they have already made their decision, there is nothing in this galaxy that can stop them. The meeting ended, but the fear remained. In the depths of Volanthi space, 3 human ships waited in perfect silence. And somewhere, in a dirty mining facility, prisoners worked without knowing that the most powerful force in the galaxy had come to find them. The countdown had begun. The Volanthi simply did not know what they were counting down to. 4 days had passed since the human ships arrived. 4 days of silence. 4 days of waiting. 4 days of slowly losing sanity. Commander Draxus had not slept properly in all that time. His eyes were bloodshot. His scales had lost their healthy shine. He spent most of his hours on the bridge, watching the 3 dark shapes that surrounded his vessel. The human ships had not moved. They had not sent any more messages. They simply existed there, forming a perfect triangle around the Crimson Dawn. Watching, waiting. At first, the crew had been professional. They were trained soldiers. They knew how to handle pressure, but as the days stretched on, something began to break inside them. It started with small things. Officers snapping at each other over minor issues. Crew members forgetting simple tasks they had done 1,000 times before. Sleep schedules falling apart as nightmares plagued anyone who closed their eyes. Then it grew worse. On the second day, a young weapons officer demanded that they fire first. He screamed that waiting was worse than death. It took 3 crew members to restrain him. He was now sedated in the medical bay. On the third day, a group of senior officers approached Draxus with a proposal. They wanted to surrender, get on their knees and beg for mercy. Draxus had refused, but he saw the fear in their eyes. They believed they were already dead. On the 4th day, the ship's priest began holding prayer services every 6 hours. The attendance grew larger each time. Draxus understood their fear. He felt it himself, deep in his bones. The human ships were not attacking. They were not threatening. But their presence was somehow worse than any weapon. It was like being watched by a predator that had already decided you were food. It was simply waiting for the right moment. Commander, Tovrik said quietly. He had aged 10 years in 4 days. You should rest. I can watch the bridge. I cannot rest, Draxus replied. Not while they are out there. They have done nothing, Commander. Perhaps they truly are just observing. No, Draxus shook his head. They are waiting for something. I can feel it. Something is happening that we cannot see. And when it is finished, they will act. He was right, though he did not know it yet. Far away on a space station that served as neutral ground for 100 species, the event he sensed was already unfolding. The Galactic Merchant Council had not held an emergency session in over 60 years. The Great Chamber was designed to hold representatives from 300 worlds. Today it was full to capacity. Species that had not spoken to each other in decades sat side by side. Old enemies forgot their hatred in the face of shared fear. Everyone knew why they were here. The news had spread across the galaxy in hours. The humans had returned. Ambassador Krelix of the Valanthi Dominion sat in the front row. His expression was a mask of confidence, but his hands trembled slightly. He had been ordered to represent his government and defend their actions. He was not sure he could do either. The council speaker, an ancient being from a species so old no one remembered their origin, rose slowly to the podium. This session is called to address the return of humanity to galactic affairs, the speaker announced. We will hear testimony from affected parties before any decisions are made. A murmur ran through the chamber. Affected parties. That meant the small species, the weak ones, the ones the Valanthi had been pushing around for decades. The first to speak was a small creature from a race called the Marine. They were the original inhabitants of the Marin Corridor, before the Valanthi had taken it from them. For 200 years, my people controlled the trade routes that bear our name, the Myrene representative said. His voice was soft, but it carried clearly through the chamber. We charged fair prices. We protected every ship that passed through our space. We hurt no one. He paused to gather himself. 6 months ago, the Valanthi came. They destroyed our defense stations. They captured our trade officials. They declared our space to be their property. When we protested, they burned 3 of our colonies as a warning. Angry sounds came from around the chamber. Krelix kept his face neutral, but he felt sweat forming on his scales. More speakers followed. A dozen species told similar stories. The Valanthi had grown aggressive over the past 10 years. They had seized territory. They had captured ships. They had killed those who resisted and enslaved those who surrendered. Each testimony added weight to the atmosphere. Each story made the Valanthi position more difficult to defend. Then came a moment of perfect silence. The chamber doors opened, every head turned, every breath stopped. A human walked into the room. Krelix had never seen a human before. He had expected something terrifying, a monster covered in weapons, a beast with killing rage in its eyes. Instead, he saw something almost disappointing. The human was medium height, with soft brown skin and dark hair. He wore simple gray clothes with no decorations or symbols of rank. His expression was calm, even peaceful. But as the human walked past, Krelix felt something that made his heart race. It was the same feeling prey animals got when a predator was near. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run, even though the human had done nothing threatening. The human ambassador took his place at the speaking platform. He looked around the chamber slowly, meeting the eyes of dozens of species. Then he spoke. My name is Thomas Chen. I represent the United Human Territories. We appreciate the council allowing us to speak today. His voice was calm, friendly, the voice of a neighbor discussing weather, not an ancient power returning after 4 centuries of silence. We have monitored galactic affairs from a distance since the Silence Accords were signed. We chose not to interfere, even when we saw things that troubled us. We believed that other species had the right to solve their own problems. He paused. 3 weeks ago, 12 cargo ships traveling under our protection were attacked in the Marin Corridor. The ships carried food and medical supplies for colonies on the Outer Rim. Colonies that have been cut off from trade by Valanthi expansion. Thomas Chen pulled out a small device and projected images into the air. They showed ships being boarded, crews being taken prisoner, cargo being seized. 114 beings from 7 different species were captured that day. They are currently being held in a Valanthi mining facility. They are being forced to work in conditions that violate basic rights recognized by every civilized species. He turned to look directly at Krelix. We know the Valanthi did not recognize our protection symbol. It has been 400 years. Symbols are forgotten. We understand this. Krelix felt a tiny spark of hope. Perhaps the humans would accept an apology. Perhaps they would take their prisoners back and leave without violence. Then Thomas Chen spoke again. We also know that this attack was not an isolated incident. The Valanthi Dominion has seized territory from 14 species in the past decade. They have killed thousands of civilians. They have enslaved millions. They have built their growing empire on the suffering of those too weak to fight back. The hope in Krelix's chest died instantly. We have gathered evidence of every crime. We have documented every death. We have recorded every act of cruelty. Thomas Chen looked around the chamber once more. Now we ask this council a simple question. What would you have us do? Silence filled the room. The human was asking permission. The most powerful force in the galaxy was standing before them, offering the weaker species a voice in what happened next. Krelix stood up. He could not stay silent any longer. This is outrageous, he shouted. The Valanthi Dominion is a sovereign power. Our internal affairs are none of your concern. You signed treaties agreeing to stay out of galactic matters. Thomas Chen turned to face him. There was no anger in his expression, no threat, just calm patience. We agreed to withdraw from galactic affairs, the human said. We agreed to be forgotten. We did not agree to watch innocent people suffer without end. We did not agree to let bullies terrorize those who cannot defend themselves. Krelix felt his anger rising. You are nothing but ancient ghosts. You hide in your territory for 400 years and think you can judge us? The galaxy has moved on without you. We will not bow to threats from the past. He stormed toward the exit. Other Valanthi representatives followed. At the door, Krelix turned back for one final statement. The Dominion rejects this council's authority. We will handle our own affairs. Thomas Chen simply nodded. His expression remained peaceful. Then we will wait, the human ambassador said, for your leaders to reconsider. Krelix left the chamber. Behind him, the council erupted in worried conversation. But Thomas Chen remained still, watching the door where the Valanthi had disappeared. He had given them a chance. He had asked permission before acting. That was more than the Corvith had received 400 years ago. Now the choice belonged to the Valanthi. They could return the prisoners. They could agree to change their ways. They could avoid the fate that had destroyed empires before them, or they could continue their arrogance. Thomas Chen already knew which choice they would make. Humans had learned to read other species very well over the centuries. The Valanthi were too proud, too certain of their own power. They would not back down until they were shown that they had no other option. He walked slowly out of the chamber, already composing the message he would send to the waiting fleet. The time for words was almost over. Soon the Valanthi would understand why the galaxy had been happy to forget about humanity, and why they should have stayed forgotten. Admiral Vorith stood on the bridge of the Dominion's Pride, the largest warship in the Valanthi fleet. Around him, 200 vessels of war moved in perfect formation. This was the Grand Fleet, the symbol of Valanthi power, the weapon that had crushed a dozen species and taken countless worlds. Today, they would use it to push back the human ghosts. Admiral, his first officer reported, we are approaching the Crimson Dawn's position. The 3 human vessels remain in the area. Good, Vorith said. He allowed himself a smile. 3 ships against 200. The humans may have been powerful once, but they have clearly forgotten how to make war. The Admiralty had debated for 2 days before giving Vorith his orders. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to simply release the prisoners and apologize. But Supreme Admiral Korith had ultimately sided with the aggressive faction. The Valanthi would not bow to ancient powers. They would show the galaxy that they feared nothing. Vorith was happy to deliver that message. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Vorith's smile faded slightly. The 3 human ships were exactly where they had been reported. Small, dark, silent. They looked like toys compared to the massive Valanthi warships. But seeing them in person, Vorith felt something he had not expected. Fear. He pushed the feeling down. It was nonsense. The humans were outnumbered almost 70-1. Their technology might have been impressive 400 years ago, but surely the galaxy had caught up. Surely the Valanthi had weapons that could match them. "Open a channel," Vorith commanded. "All frequencies." "Channel open, Admiral." "Human vessels, this is Admiral Vorith of the Valanthi Grand Fleet. You are in sovereign Valanthi territory without permission. You will leave this space immediately, or we will be forced to remove you." He waited. The human ships did not respond. They did not move. They simply continued floating there, dark and silent. "Perhaps they did not receive our message," the first officer suggested. "They received it," Vorith said. "They are ignoring us." He felt a flash of anger. The humans thought they could dismiss the Valanthi fleet? They thought they could sit there and refuse to acknowledge 200 warships? "All vessels, advance to engagement range," Vorith ordered. "Weapons hot. Prepare warning shots." The Grand Fleet moved forward. Sensor alarms began beeping as targeting systems locked onto the human ships. The Dominion's Pride trained its main cannon on the lead human vessel. "Ready to fire, Admiral," the weapons officer reported. "Put a shot across their bow, close enough to rock their ship. Let them know we are serious." The main cannon fired. A brilliant beam of energy cut through space, passing within 100 meters of the human ship. The human ships did not react. They did not move. They did not return fire. They simply sat there. And then every screen on every ship in the Valanthi fleet flickered and changed. "Admiral," the communications officer shouted in alarm, "our systems are being accessed. Someone is broadcasting through all our networks." "Block it," Vorith commanded. "I cannot. The signal is coming from everywhere at once." The main viewer cleared. An image appeared. It was a human. A woman with gray hair and calm eyes, wearing a military uniform covered in symbols that Vorith did not recognize. "I am Fleet Commander Sarah Morrison of the United Human Territories Navy," she said. Her voice was steady and clear. "This broadcast is being sent to every screen in the Valanthi Dominion and to every species watching throughout the galaxy." Vorith's blood went cold. Every screen? That was impossible. How could they broadcast through Valanthi military encryption? How could they reach civilian networks on distant worlds? "You have fired upon human vessels," Commander Morrison continued. "Under normal circumstances, this would be an act of war. However, we understand that you do not fully comprehend your situation. Therefore, we are going to give you one chance to understand." The image on the screen changed. Vorith heard gasps throughout the bridge. He heard screaming from other ships on the communication channels. He understood why. The screen now showed a view from somewhere outside normal space. Dimensional fold space, the humans called it. A place where ships could hide outside the regular universe. And in that space, filling the view from edge to edge, was a fleet, a human fleet. Vorith tried to count the ships. He stopped when he reached 1,000. The fleet continued beyond that, stretching into the darkness until the ships became tiny points of light. There were tens of thousands of vessels, perhaps more. "This is the first defense fleet," Commander Morrison said calmly. "It is one of 7 fleets currently stationed in fold space around the galaxy. Our total military strength is approximately 400,000 combat vessels." The number hit Vorith like a physical blow. 400,000. The entire Valanthi Navy was less than 5,000 ships. The entire military force of every species in the galaxy combined was perhaps 50,000. The humans had 8 times that number, and they had been hiding in dimensional fold space this entire time, watching, waiting. "We have not fired a weapon in anger in 400 years, Commander Morrison continued. "We do not wish to break that record. Our fleet remains in fold space with weapons cold. We have no desire for conquest. We have no interest in ruling your species or any other." Her expression grew harder. "But we will not stand idle while innocents suffer. The prisoners taken from ships under our protection will be released. The species who have been brutalized by your expansion will be offered the choice to leave your territory under our escort. And your fleet will stand down and allow this to happen." The image returned to Commander Morrison's face. "You have 1 hour to make your decision. If you choose to fight, understand this. We will win. We will win completely and utterly. Your fleet will be destroyed in minutes. Your military infrastructure will follow. And then we will leave, just as we left 400 years ago." She paused. "We learned something from the Corvette War. Destruction is easy. It is also pointless. We would rather you choose peace. We would rather show you that cooperation is better than conquest. But make no mistake, if you force us to act, we will act with overwhelming force." The transmission ended. The screens returned to normal. For a long moment, no one on the bridge of the Dominion's Pride spoke. Vorith stood frozen, staring at the space where the image had been. His mind struggled to process what he had just seen. 400,000 ships, 8 times the galaxy's combined military power. Sitting in fold space for 4 centuries, waiting and watching, the humans had not grown weak during their isolation. They had grown stronger, far stronger than anyone had ever imagined. "Admiral," the first officer whispered, "what are your orders?" Vorith looked at the 3 small human ships floating before his fleet. 3 ships. Behind them, tens of thousands more waited to appear at a moment's notice. He thought about his orders from high command. Show strength, push back the humans, demonstrate that the Valanthi fear nothing. He thought about his family on the homeworld, his children, his grandchildren. He thought about the Corvette, an empire of 1,000 systems destroyed in 11 days. Slowly, Vorith walked to the communication station. He pushed the officer aside and opened a channel himself. "All vessels," he said. His voice was quiet but steady. "Power down weapons. Return to defensive formation. We are standing down." "Admiral," someone shouted in protest, "our orders were clear. We cannot surrender to threats." "We are not surrendering," Vorith said. "We are choosing to live. High Command can issue whatever orders they want from the safety of the homeworld. Out here, facing those ships, I am making the decision." He looked at the main viewer again. The 3 human ships remained still, waiting, patient. "Prepare to receive refugee convoys," Vorith ordered. "Any species that wishes to leave Valanthi space will be given safe passage. We will not fire. We will not interfere." The bridge fell silent. Officers exchanged uncertain looks. But no one argued further. Vorith sat down heavily in his command chair. He had just ended his career. High Command would never forgive this disobedience. But he would be alive. His crew would be alive. His people would survive. That was worth any price. Hours later, the first refugee ships began arriving. Thousands of small vessels carrying millions of beings who had lived under Valanthi rule. They moved past the Grand Fleet without incident. The human ships escorted them, moving with silent grace through the gathered warships. On screens across the galaxy, billions watched the scene. The mighty Valanthi fleet standing down. The ancient human power, showing its strength without firing a single shot. A message had been sent. The humans were back. And they were stronger than ever. But more importantly, another message had been received. A message about mercy, about restraint, about choosing peace when war was easily within reach. The galaxy would remember this day for a long time. And slowly they would begin to understand that the humans were not monsters to be feared. They were something far more complex, something the galaxy had never seen before. They were a species trying to be better than they once were. 3 months had passed since the day the Grand Fleet stood down. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Valanthi Dominion still existed. The humans had not destroyed them, as many had expected. They had not taken their worlds or dismantled their civilization. They had simply watched as the natural consequences of their actions unfolded. Without the fear of Valanthi warships, the conquered species found their courage. One by one, they declared their independence. The Myrene reclaimed their corridor. The Kasari took back their mining colonies. 14 species who had lived under Valanthi rule for decades suddenly stood on their own feet again. The Dominion shrank rapidly. Their economy, built on stolen resources and slave labor, collapsed within weeks. Their military, humiliated before the entire galaxy, lost most of its power. Admirals who had once dreamed of conquest now struggled to maintain order in their remaining territories. Supreme Admiral Korath resigned in disgrace. Elder Admiral Salthrin took his place, though he knew he was too old to hold the position for long. His first act was to release all prisoners and formally apologized to every species the Dominion had wronged. It was not enough to repair the damage, but it was a start. Commander Draxus returned to the homeworld a changed man. He was not punished for his failure. There was no one left to punish him. Instead, he was quietly retired and sent home to his family. He spent his days in his garden now, tending to plants that needed no orders and asked no questions. Sometimes he would look up at the sky and remember the 3 dark ships that had surrounded his vessel. He would remember the fear, the helplessness, the absolute certainty that he was going to die. And he would remember that he had lived. The humans had shown mercy. That knowledge troubled him more than anything else. He had been raised to believe that power meant dominance, that strength meant crushing your enemies. But the humans had possessed ultimate power, and they had chosen not to use it. Why? Draxus did not understand. He was not sure he ever would. Far from Villanthi space, on a small moon that had been set aside for refugees, a different kind of understanding was beginning to grow. The moon had been named New Hope by the beings who settled there. It was a collection of species who had escaped Villanthi rule with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Marine and Kasari lived alongside Torith and Ven. Former enemies became neighbors. Former strangers became friends. The humans had helped establish the colony. They provided food, medicine, and building materials. They asked for nothing in return. When the colony was stable, they prepared to leave. On the day of their departure, a young Myrene girl approached the human commander who had led the relief effort. Her name was Tika. She was 12 years old. She had watched her parents die when the Villanthi bombed her homeworld. The commander's name was James Wright. He was a tall man with kind eyes and gray hair at his temples. He had fought in no wars. He had commanded no battles. His entire career had been spent helping people, not hurting them. Tika looked up at him with eyes full of questions. "Why did you help us?" she asked. James crouched down to her level. "Because you needed help," he said simply. "But you could have destroyed the Villanthi. Everyone saw your fleet. You could have wiped them out like you did the Corvette. Why did you let them live?" James was quiet for a long moment. Around them, humans and refugees moved about their business. Ships were being loaded. Supplies were being organized. Life was continuing. "Do you know what happened after we destroyed the Corvette?" James asked. Tika shook her head. "We won. We won completely. The greatest empire in the galaxy was gone, and we were the most powerful species alive." He paused. "And we hated ourselves for it." Tika frowned. "Why? They killed your people. They deserved what happened." "Did they? All of them?" James looked out at the sky. The Corvette Empire had billions of citizens. Most of them were ordinary people, farmers, teachers, children. They had nothing to do with the attack on our colony. But when we destroyed their empire, they suffered too. They lost their homes, their security, their way of life. Many of them died in the chaos that followed. He turned back to Tika. "We told ourselves we were justified. The Corvettes started it. They killed our people first. But here's the truth. Revenge is never as satisfying as you think it will be. When the anger faded, all we were left with was guilt. We had become the thing we hated." "So you stopped," Tika said slowly. "You went away." "We went away," James confirmed. "For 400 years, we stayed in our territory and tried to become something better. We built schools instead of weapons. We created art instead of war plans. We focused on healing ourselves instead of hurting others. But you still have the weapons. You still have the fleet." "Yes, because the galaxy is dangerous. Because sometimes people like the Villanthi decide that hurting others is acceptable. We keep our strength so that we can protect those who cannot protect themselves." James smiled gently. "But we only use it when we absolutely must. And even then, we try to use as little as possible." Tika thought about this. Her young mind worked through concepts that many adults never grasped. "You could have killed all the Villanthi," she said finally, "but then you would feel bad again, like with the Corvette." "Yes, and more importantly, killing them would not bring back your parents. It would not undo the harm they caused. All it would do is create more suffering, more hatred, more reasons for future wars." "So what is the answer?" James stood up. He looked at the colony around them. beings from a dozen species working together, former victims building new lives, hope growing where there had been only despair. This is the answer, he said. Building something good is harder than destroying something bad. It takes longer. It requires more patience. But in the end, it is the only thing that actually works. A human shuttle landed nearby. James's crew began boarding. I have to go now, he said to Tika, but I want you to remember something. The galaxy is watching what happens here. Species who have been afraid of humans for 400 years are seeing us help refugees instead of conquering empires. That matters. It changes how they think about us. And maybe slowly, it changes how they think about power itself. Tika nodded. She did not fully understand everything the human had said, but she understood enough. Thank you, she said, for helping us, for not being like them. James smiled. Thank you for giving us the chance to prove that we have changed. He walked to his shuttle and boarded. Minutes later, the human ship rose into the sky and disappeared among the stars. Tika watched it go. Around her, the colony continued its work. People talked and laughed and argued and built. Life went on. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Valanthi struggled with the ruins of their empire. They would survive. They would learn. Perhaps in time, they would become something better than what they had been. And far away, in the depths of Fold space, the human fleet waited, silent, patient, watchful. They were not conquerors. They were not destroyers. They were guardians. They were teachers. They were a species that had made terrible mistakes and spent 400 years trying to atone for them. The galaxy had feared them once. Now slowly, they were beginning to understand them. On distant worlds, in quiet rooms, parents told their children a new version of the old stories. The humans were still powerful beyond measure. They could still destroy empires if they chose. But now the stories had a different ending. Pray you never see a human warship, the saying went. Pray harder that you deserve their mercy. But there was a new saying now, spreading through the refugee colonies in the liberated worlds. It was spoken by those who had seen human kindness firsthand. If you see a human warship, do not run, do not hide. Look at what you have done. If you have hurt no one, if you have lived with honor, you have nothing to fear. Because humans do not destroy the innocent. They protect them. And that was the most terrifying thing of all, for those who ruled through cruelty. The humans were always watching, and someday when the time was right, they would appear to ask a simple question. What have you done with your power? The answer to that question would determine everything. In a small house on the Valanthi homeworld, a child asked his father about the strange ships in the history books, the ones that had humiliated their great fleet without firing a single weapon. The father was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. They are the ones who could have destroyed us, he said, and they chose not to. The child thought about this. Why? Because they wanted to be better than they used to be, and they gave us the chance to be better too. The child did not fully understand, but he would remember, and someday when he was grown, he would make his own choices about what kind of person he wanted to be. That was the human gift to the galaxy, not conquest, not destruction, not fear, a chance to be better. And in the end, that was worth more than all the weapons in the universe.